Hello YouTube, this is a Satsu 5 and I'm going to give a very basic review of the Cutlerylover barlow, and I'm going to talk about a concept of knife that I call the tuxedo knife, and you know, how Cutlerylover's knife fits into this category, and my suggestion to you if you're looking for a gentleman's photo for more formal situations. And so let's get to it. What you see in front of you is my Seiko XKX with the Blue Shark Bond NATO. I got the Cutlerylover barlow, the Nortel, and the Cold Steel large Espada. And first off, I'm going to kind of define what a tuxedo knife is, and ProTech inspired me to come up with this idea. Although they came up with it, I'm applying it as a concept for all knife companies. That's just something that they call their specific style of knife, but I'm going to apply it as a broad category that other knife companies can get into, and that is the tuxedo knife. It's going to be a very simple and elegant color scheme and design. You know, not a whole lot of weird things going on. And to me, where the tuxedo knife really shines, although this isn't the fact with all of them, but you can usually find a tuxedo knife that is relatively affordable. And what I mean by that is my go-to gentleman's photo for very fancy situations is the William Henry Jurassic. That says Mammoth Tooth, Makunagame Diamond. One of the diamonds fell out, which I'm bummed out about. Mike Norris Damascus, sterling silver on the leather lanyard. This is a very expensive knife, and you're paying for a lot of different features. And so you're paying a lot for it. It's very expensive. This costs like $1,500. I had to have it on layaway forever before I can get it. But you're paying for a lot on this knife, and it's not really the function of the knife, it's how it looks. Don't get me wrong, it's extremely sharp, it's very smooth. I just messed that up. There we go. Has a button lock. Very beautiful knife. But I want to say that when I went to my sister's wedding, when I went to my brother's engagement party, I brought this knife over this knife for a couple of reasons. One, this knife is new and I wanted to check it out. And secondly, this one's expensive, and I don't like to cut certain things with it. The Cutlerylover knife, and I've used this terminology referring to Emerson, has hammer-like qualities. And what I mean by that is, even though it's a fancy looking knife or it's an expensive knife, this one isn't expensive, by the way, it's pretty affordable. But like with Emerson knives, they're very expensive. They feel like you can really use them. You can cut stuff with them and not worry about them. With this William Henry, if I'm cutting zip ties, I'm very skittish when it comes to cutting zip ties with this. I don't want to cut ribbon with this because some ribbon has wires in it. Don't want to open up boxes that might have staples in it. I've chipped the blade on this a couple of times and had to have my brother repair it. And you know, this knife I really baby, and I don't feel as if I can use it as hard as I can use this knife. Because this knife has hammer qualities. Not only is it affordable, but it just feels like you can use it. And if something goes wrong with it, it's not like $1,500. This is. So this knife might be the prettiest knife I own, but this one to me is just as formal is formal looking, but it's more usable. And so the only thing you can really open it or cut with this is cut thread and cut envelopes. I'm not going to be cutting up my steak and rubbing it on a ceramic plate. I'm not going to be, you know, whittling with this. This is almost purely for thread and envelopes, maybe tape. Well, yes, tape, only if you're 100% sure there's no staples in the box or package that you're opening. That being said, not all gentlemen's knives fall into this tuxedo category. If you want a more rural or a rustic gentleman's knife, you can get a Laguille en Blanc. Has firework. This juniper wood smells like black pepper, and it's a good knife. I kind of call this my picnic knife when I'm going and I'm going to be eating and bringing my own silverware. This is kind of my go-to. But let's get back to Cutlerylover's knife. I defined that it fits the tuxedo knife genre that I stated, and that is the black and silver, black and white, maybe white, like this color, which is more silver than white, but maybe a black and ivory or black and silver color scheme. I feel is very attainable by the average knife user. You can find a knife that fits this category, and it will work in most situations. It'll work at funerals, weddings, church, business meetings. It works in most situations, and it goes well with the Seiko XKX007, with the Bond NATO. Most people say that NATOs are not very performable, they're more casual. But I think if you get the gray and black Bond NATO, that it fits, that you kind of get an excuse and a get out of jail free card. Like, you're allowed to wear this NATO at formal occasions. But yes, this color scheme is very basic, very simple, very elegant, and it works in most situations. And that's what I like about the tuxedo knife concept. When you progress in your knife collecting, or you progress in your salary, you can get a William Henry. You can get something with titanium that's anodized that has a little bit of pop to it. But you can, if you're not financially in a place where you can buy a very, very, very fancy knife, and don't get me wrong, this knife and this knife are not necessarily cheap, but let's just say if you have a budget of $200 or less, you can pretty much find a knife that fits this color scheme that will fit in your budget. And I can't remember how much this costs, but these two knives you can buy and you can carry. You can carry them into a wedding or a funeral or a business meeting, and they will fit right in, and they're not going to scare anybody, and they're going to be well placed in whatever situation you use them in. Now let's talk about Cutlerylover's knife specifically. When he announced they designed a knife and it's going to be available, I told him exactly how I felt about this knife. I said I'm not a big fan of flippers, but I love modern interpretations of classic designs. I don't have a Barlow in my collection. I really want one in my collection, and I said I told him that I was going to get one. Now I still don't care for flippers, but I've gotten used to using this flipper. I'm not a big flipper guy. It took me some time to get used to it. And occasionally, depending on how I open it, sometimes I try using the cigarette lighter method and it doesn't work as well. But I've gotten used to it, and I kind of found a technique that works for me. I like that this knife does not have jimping. Jimping is not important, especially on a gentleman's knife, and I would argue that it doesn't belong on a tactile knife either. But I love the fact this doesn't have jimping. I also really enjoy the fact that this has grooves cut in the G10, and I'm very happy that it's not checkered. There you can probably see it a little bit better. This groove design gives it a organic horn look, like it might be buffalo horn or ram's horn or whatever, but it gives it a natural look to it. So I really appreciate that, and I think that adds to its perceived luxury. Has a very nice acute point, and that's good for certain situations. This knife came razor laser sharp out of the box, and I dulled it within the first hour that I had it because I was playing with it so much, cutting random things, shaving, opening up packages, cutting cardboard. This thing got dull pretty quickly. That's the master blade. The secondary blade, I have some complaints about. First off, I would prefer that this swedge not be here, and the nail nick would be higher up on the blade to make it a little bit easier to open. To me, in my opinion, this is choosing form over function. And to me, if you would have gave this a more traditional pen blade, I'd be even more stoked, because I love this blade shape on traditional knives. I'd be even more stoked, and it would function better. And to me, on the secondary blade, you don't need as pointy of a point, because you already have a very pointy point on the master blade. But He decided he wanted a more elongated swedge, and not a faucet edge, but a swedge, and he put the nail nick up here. I'm not too crazy about that, but it's not terrible. You can still open it. It's just not as easy as it could be. But to me, every good traditional knife, I can't even say this because this is an American knife. The Barlow is British, but you know, most traditional knives, I think they should have multiple blades, especially if they have a subpar steel on them. A lot of European blades have, or a lot of French blades have one, or French gentlemen's knives have one blade, but I like it when my traditional knives have two or more blades. So I'm glad it has two blades. I'm glad that it has the tuxedo look to it. It can be worn in many different scenarios. Not too crazy about the secondary blade. Something else I wanted to mention, that this knife fits perfectly in my vest pocket. This size closed fits my vest pocket. It doesn't bulge out too much, and is very accessible if I'm wearing my dress shirt, tie, and vest. So it's just very handy to get to. It's more or less on the right central part of my body. Can reach in there, grab it, cut what I need to cut, slip it back in the pocket, and it's not a hassle to deploy, especially after you get used to the flipper. But that's it. I just want to share that with you. I think Cutlerylover did a good job on its first commercially available knife design as far as the look and the master blade is concerned. I love that it doesn't have jimping, but I would prefer the secondary blade to be a little bit more user-friendly and not have the exaggerated point, and to have a more traditional pin blade. This is a pretty versatile blade right there, and to me it would have been just as awesome, or even more awesome, if it had that blade instead of the secondary blade that it does have. So that's it. I'm a Satsu 5, and I'm out.